Today on the Coach What Podcast, we have a very special guest joining the show today. A very unique sport, and very thankful that this coach decided to jump on and talk to us about it, just because it is the first sport of its kind to be on our show. So I'm very thankful and excited to talk a little bit about the sport itself. Prior to coaching in college, this coach served as the head flag football coach at Benjamin E. Mays High School, as well as that school's track and field throwing coach. While being the head flag football coach there, she led 7 athletes to individual all-region awards, including producing a Player of the Year award. Now, while coaching throws over on the track and field side, she helped over 15 athletes produce medals, and she also helped produce a individual state champion. So very thankful to have this coach on. And so without further ado, let's welcome Coach Breana Sumpter from LaGrange College, as she is the head flag women's football coach. With the world of coaching evolving and the carousel always changing, we're going to sit down with some coaches and we're going to figure out what they coach, how they coach, and most importantly, why they got into this profession. My name is Kason Wilkinson, and I am your host of the Coaches Why podcast.
That's a great question.
That was my Coaches Why.
Welcome back to another Coaches Why podcast. We have a very special guest in the building today. Another first-time program, first-time sport joining the show, so I'm super excited to have this. Coach Breana Sumpter of LaGrange College University. I believe it's university, right?
College. LaGrange College, yeah.
I always get these mixed up. I don't know. LaGrange College, I don't know why university came to my brain, but Coach is the flag football coach out there, women's flag football. So brand new to the show. So Coach, I appreciate you joining today. I look forward to talking to you, but I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk today.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm glad we were finally able to connect.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, some things going back and forth the last few weeks, but super excited as well. So, kind of jump right into it. I would love to hear a little bit about you. You know, where'd you grow up, when you got involved in sports, and really when did you realize that you had kind of this passion for football maybe?
So I'm from Philly.
Okay.
I born there, grew up there, and I went to college in Pennsylvania. I went to Shippensburg University, which is about 2 hours west of the city. So went to college, came back home, was home for about 2 years. And then decided I wanted a different experience, new experiences. So I had an aunt that lives in Georgia, and she was just kind of in my ear about like grad school and, you know, other opportunities in the South. And I was kind of like, oh, I don't know. And then finally I just kind of jumped. And so I left. I've been in Georgia now, I think it'll be like 8 or 9 years in September. Okay. I've had a multitude of jobs or experiences, but overall, I've been a teacher here. So I worked in mental and behavioral health first, but then I started my career as a teacher. And through being a teacher is how I became a coach when I transitioned into teaching at the high school level. The opportunity just came literally on my first day. Someone said, hey, we want to bring a flag football program here. You know, it's going to be a great opportunity for the girls. And so I did hesitate at first because, like I said, it was my first day. I didn't even know the person who was advertising. Like, I didn't know any of the students. I didn't know anything. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, you know, I just kind of hung on to the fact that it would be an opportunity for the girls to play. And so I took on the role as the assistant for the first year. But the head coach who had been at the school for over 20 years was like, you know, I'm just going to be here for a year. Like, and then you're going to take over as the head coach. And I was like, okay. So I tried to just like absorb everything, that experience through her. And then the next year I actually asked her if she could stay on as one of my assistants to still kind of like help me out and navigate, you know, the waters with high school. And so she stayed. We definitely switched roles. And I took on a lot more of that responsibility, but I would say I owe a lot of that to her, just opening that opportunity for me. The reason why flag football felt kind of like a no-brainer was I mean, you called me earlier. You asked me when I graduated. So I graduated high school 2011, where of course flag football, at least in Pennsylvania, was not a sport. I recently learned that states like Florida have actually had high school flag football for over 20 years. Like, it's not new to them in the way
Did
that
not
it's
know
new
that.
to other
Wow.
states.
Okay.
Yeah. So, when I was in high school, the only flag football or the only football I was allowed to play, of course, as a girl, was in gym class. So, we got to choose like a theme once a quarter, and I will always choose flag football when I could. And, it's just very much a fun sport. And when I was in college, we had a rec flag football league. We actually started the league. So that idea of like starting a team, starting something from nothing has been like a familiar kind of like theme that I've experienced before. So, so when that opportunity came, it just seemed like a no-brainer. Of course, with my background in teaching and like behavioral mental health, I felt a little bit prepared with how to deal with the attitudes of players and such. So the other part was just learning the game and learning the technicalities of the game, which can only come through experience. So coached high school for 3 years. And then I decided that, I realized I wasn't showing up to be a teacher. I was really just showing up to be a coach. And so I wanted to figure out how can I'd rather just be a coach. Like, I'm having more fun with this. And so I started to do a little bit of research, and I applied for the job, and I got the job.
Yeah, that's really cool. Especially because, there's a lot there, and I'm definitely going to try to touch on most of that. But the really cool thing is that, like, you grew up in Philly, right? At least in that area, and you went to Shippensburg, I believe is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And you were kind of a part of that intramural rec type of approach to it, right? Just kind of being a part of that. But it's really cool whenever opportunities kind of come lay in your lap or come to a fruition, I guess, just kind of being in the right place at the right time. But I always find it interesting, right? Like, they always say, like, to be honest, the proper interview process is probably, I want to coach, but teaching comes first, right? Like that's probably the proper response when they ask you, are you coaching to teach or are you teaching to coach? But like, I feel like there comes like this crossword where it's tough, like how you said that you were starting to appreciate coaching more than the actual teaching side of it. So like, in situations like yours or maybe some other people, how do you feel like people may overcome that, or how, because not everybody has a college, in their backyard, and they may not be in the situation like for example, and definitely not to say anything of like what's the right term? Like, I don't want to downplay flag football, but it is a relatively new, which I guess not everywhere, but like as like as a universal or as a national sport, relatively new. Like, obviously there's a lot of places popping up, but like the coaches who are maybe kind of facing that crossroad in like football or baseball or maybe more established sports, you may not have that backyard that you moved down to, right? And they open up relatively close to you type of situation. So how do you feel like you faced it, or maybe how do you feel like other coaches may overcome that if they don't have that ability to just go 30 minutes, 45 minutes down the road, and there's an opportunity that may come about, like how do they get through that mental, obstacle basically, so where they don't lose out?
I just want to be clear. I think you're asking me how does one overcome that feeling of, I just want to be a coach, but I'm tied to my job of having to be a teacher.
Basically, yeah.
So I would say so flag football was in the fall. I actually, that same woman then in turn asked me to be the throwing coach of the track and field team in the spring. So I got to coach all year long. And so I think with other sports that maybe you're just tied into your season, and then it's like you're waiting, 8 months or 10 months until you can coach again. I coached 2 sports. So it was like, okay, flag football is over. There's a little pause for Christmas break. But then when we come back in the spring, I'm into another sport. So I'm now focusing on different things. And so that helped me still continue to want to be a coach, or to feed my drive to just want to coach and not want to teach anymore. Because teaching is, it's political, right? And especially now, it's political. There were a lot of things that I didn't like about the job. But one of the things, it was never the kids. I love being around them. They made my day. One of the things I used to tell them was that, like, if we're all going to be here for whatever amount of time that we're going to be here together, we're going to have fun. Like, it shouldn't be dreadful, which, and with a high schooler today, they can kind of look at you like, what?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like, how can you make this fun, or how can it, be that? But even that came with a lot of, like, trusting and just getting to know them as well, because again, the bulk of my day was being a teacher. Coaching was only 2 hours a day, 2.5 hours a day. The bulk of the day was teaching. So the bulk of the day was kids who were not my athletes. And so how do I still spend time with them? Like I said, I wasn't there for the politics of teaching, the structures of teaching, the test scores, the this and that. Those were actually like the worst days. I was there for them. I was there for, my kids, and just making sure that we could all have a really good time. So then it would be So ironically enough, like at the end of the school day, I would be drained.
Yeah,
but before class would come around, I'm like, oh my gosh, I still got practice.
Yeah.
So
that's a big thing though, like that draining of being a teacher. Like I wasn't in the classroom. I was a sub for a little while. But like my mom was a teacher. Like she taught for 28 years, I think, maybe somewhere in there. And like you could tell, right? Like she didn't coach, but she'd come home some days and was just drained. So like it's a tiring job. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's a tiring profession.
Yeah. And I mean, like I will have like 180 students a school year, and you want to give or have an experience with all of the students, all 180 of them. But because they're all different, they all have different needs, they all respond differently. They also take from you differently, right? Like some kids needed more of my energy and my attention and my time and just being in my space than other kids. And so, and it's like, you still want to show up for them, but it's like, I'm tired. And then I got to keep showing up.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It is. But, teaching one of those things where, like, if you actually are a good teacher, and I say that on, like, the terms, because there are teachers out there just doing it for check, just because it is a steady pay. Like, you can do it anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, and get a steady pay, but you actually don't really care about it, right? Like, except for when it matters, but, kids can feel that. So if you're actually a good teacher, like it takes a lot out of you. It's easy to sit behind your desk and give them a worksheet and get this done by the end of class, or take homework home or whatever. So I respect a good teacher, and it sounds like you give a lot of energy to those kids. So I can kind of see how the politics side of it drains you. Maybe, obviously the kids drain you, but if you feel that additional stuff going on at the end of it too, right? Like that makes a big factor. So I respect that you did that. And, obviously I love that you found something that you enjoy doing and that you love doing in the coaching world, and still being able to being a special person to kids, right? And all the terms what coaching is. And if people don't know what a coach is, like the title of a coach, go look it up. I had a guy tell me that when I first got hired. He's like, "What is a coach?" And I was like, "Oh, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, he told me the example of it. So I don't want to say it, but you go look up what a coach is in real world. And that's what we do. So I love that you found something that you love to do, and kind of leading into like how you started at this high school. You were there for, you said 3 years, I believe. And then you found your way to LaGrange. Like how did you, like, I know LaGrange, you said like they just kind of opened up. I think it said that it's only been here for a short period of time. So like, were you, maybe it was your interview process, maybe it was like the relationships you did, or, maybe what you were able to do in high school, but like, how did you go from such a short time coaching, right, on relative terms, to being a college coach, right, and opening up, this program at the level that it is?
Well, first, I won't negate the fact that I got lucky. Like,
yeah,
right. Like a lot of this is just timing. It's a new sport. It's an emerging sport. Everyone's excited about it. Everyone wants to kind of get on the wave about it. And again, like for me, I was just like trying to find an out for being a teacher, but I realized I really enjoy being a coach. Um, I think a lot of my background helps as far as the mental and behavioral health. So without usually having the title of coach, I was being a coach and showing up how I did as a coach. But also when I did coach the high school, I would say there was some success there, at least by my standards. And my standard of success is just, can we do better than we did last time? Are we doing better? So that first year, even when I was an assistant, I, knowing that the next year I would be the head coach, I treated it like it all mattered. Like it mattered to me as the head coach. And that first year, we didn't win a single game. And we were trying to figure everything out because it all happened so quickly. Like, yep, it's coming, it's here. These are the girls that want to play. They've never played football a day in their life. Or they never played any variation of football or flag football. And we all have these notions about what flag football is because we all think flag football is just football, right? And so we're all going to get out here and we're just play football. And so there was a lot of learning that took place in that first year, which is why I remember thinking like, we're just not scoring. Like we're not able to put it all together to get down the field and score. And so I remember that first year, that first off season, like I took that to the chest. Like I had never been a part of like a completely losing season. That I didn't know what that felt like. I didn't know how to think about that. All I knew was that football consumed me after that. And so the entire off season, I just spent learning and studying and trying to be better. And in the second year, we won games, but we still had some issues that I still couldn't figure out. And then I think in the third year, things all kind of fell together. So much so that I almost wish I could have held on one more year to be a teacher and do it all over again because we got it. Right. And it wasn't about the personnel. I mean, you're going to lose girls every year because they're graduating, they move, they transfer, things happen. But we had it. We had a system. I had an assistant coach with me. Like in that third year, we took off and not in like a national sense, but I think in the local sense, like, and what was bigger for me was the kids in the school were coming out to see them play. Right. Because they knew that they were a good team, that they were a winning team, and it was electric to watch them. Yeah. And so there was success there, but there was also success as a throwing coach. So I remember at one point, I know how arrogant this sounds or how ego-filled this sounds, but there was a point I didn't leave a meet without a medal. Right. And that was shot put and discus, boys and girls. It's not to say every kid, every meet walked away with a medal, but I knew every time somebody was leaving with something. And eventually that led to a state championship. And so I know I didn't get the state championship in flag football, but I did get it with a young lady in throwing. And, I think on paper, I look like a better throwing coach just because there was a little bit more success there as far as, like I said, just not always winning. You get to those points where you're competing, you're getting through regionals, you're getting through sectionals. You can see year after year, you're able to get girls through those ranks and through to the finish line. So, like I said, I think a lot of it was luck as far as the timing of it all. But I don't want to take away from my experience with, being able to work with young people, especially girls, work with them, build them up confidently, not just in their athletic skills, because a lot of them, they have the skills. They don't have the confidence. They don't have the discipline. They don't have the consistency. They don't have all those other things that is what ultimately turns them into a winner. So I was taking kids and trying to turn them into winners, not just win everything.
That's a big thing. And like you said, luck is a big deal, and being in the right place, right time is a huge piece of it. But I think like you said, not discrediting what you were able to do as a coach is big. Like touching base a little bit on the like you feeling comfortable with kind of building these young athletes up and getting them to a point where they find their own success. Like that's also a resume thing too, right? That's not really on paper. right? Like obviously, like you don't. There's some effort stats. There's stats that people don't take in any sport. But if you actually watch the relationship, if you actually just watch the interaction between you and maybe your athletes, that might be something that you could actually like attest to too. Like, hey, just come watch us for one meet and look how we bond, look how they change, look how they trust, whatever the case is, that you can't really see on paper outside of the wins or losses, right? So I think that's a huge piece in a successful coach as well, and building a good program. And so, like, obviously, I know you said you'd like to have stayed one more year, potentially, right? I know, like, you're lucky to be here, and I'm sure if you stayed one more year, you might not be coaching here. But obviously,
Right.
there is that piece, right? Like, oh man, if we had one more year, we might have done it. But before we actually get into the sport of flag football, because I'm gonna edit that out. Um, but yeah, like before we get into this, talking about the sport of flag football, because I actually have it's interesting. It's coming to the Olympics. It's coming to fruition. Like it's a crazy sport. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that here in a little bit. But I think before that, I'm curious to know um, maybe what are some challenges that you faced, right? Like going from a relatively new high school coach, right, and at the time that you were in school, it's not like you had a recruiting process. It's not like you got to feel what maybe some of these athletes are feeling, at least in the terms of flag football. But like, what are some challenges that you faced transitioning from high school to college, and how do you feel like you've overcame them, or maybe some things that that you're having to, it's still a challenge that you're having to just continue to get better at with whatever it is, process or experience or whatever. But yeah, kind of put that into perspective.
The biggest thing is recruiting. Recruiting is so hard.
Okay.
um, it is. I would say it's that. Like I like if and understanding what is my job? Like what is my job beyond just coaching? And with flag football being a new sport, just new in general, there's not a lot of guidance. And I think that that's one of the biggest things. Like if you compare it to other sports and how it can start is if you can start a new college tomorrow and decide we're going to have a baseball team, right? Baseball has been around for over a century, like decade, like a
Yeah,
long
long time.
time.
Yeah, for
It's
sure. Yeah.
not new. It's not new. The process of how you decide to do things are not new. The rules are not going to change within a year or two or anything like that. Like there might, again, the school might be new, but I think you could feel a little bit more comfort and stability bringing in a sport like baseball or basketball or soccer, volleyball, softball, sports that just have been around for a little bit more longer time.
For sure.
The the issue that I have, like just personally, like I said, recruiting is my number one. And then you just have the issues of the sport. Like the sport is just new. It's not NCAA sanctioned yet, but we are NCAA schools that have flag football. So what does that mean? I mean, we don't play in conferences where it's kind of we refer to it sometimes as like the Wild Wild West. Like I can play whoever I want as long as I have the budget to get there. As long as I don't go beyond my NCAA days and regulations or anything like that. But you can play whoever you want. Like you can travel as far as you want. There's no limitations. There's no conference schedule. There's no no national championship at the end. And while the NAIA level is a little bit more established than the NCAA level, and you can still kind of play NAIA teams, and but their whole setup is different. They have conferences. They have commissioners. They have rules. They have a rule book, but we don't. And those are just woes of their growing pains. And I'm sure in a year or two or three, I don't know how long, but things are going to change. Things are going to be a little bit more stable, a little bit more routine, and I think it'll be easier. But also, I don't know if this is always true, but I have in my head that most college flag football coaches are going to be new college coaches. And so, sorry, bad call. And so, when we're coming into these positions, there is no path that has been beaten for us. There is no one there to shelter us in and say, this is how we do things for flag football. This is how things are. I just have to figure it out on my own.
Right.
Which is like, you know, just try and be patient with myself. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not going to be perfect. I've talked to several flag football coaches, and it just sounds like everyone's first year is the same. Like this is tough. It's hard.
Right.
There are going to be nights you don't sleep. Like it's just
that's probably very true.
It's a lot. Sure. And you know, I think when you tell people that you're a college coach, they get like so excited for you because what they think that looks like, what they think that means. Yeah. But and it's like, yes, still be excited for me. I'm excited for myself. It's just that this is a lot harder than you might think it is.
It's probably similar to like women's wrestling, how NAI has kind of been the established area for a long time. And NCAA is just now kind of becoming an established, like this is the first year in the time, which I think they've had women's wrestling in NCAA schools for a few years. However long it's been. But this is the first time that they've actually are making women's wrestling, like I think they said the 91st championship sport. So next year, women's wrestling in the NCAA level will be considered like NCAA championships, all that stuff. But up until this year, NAI and JUCO have kind of been the only two, and JUCO is relatively new, but NAI has kind of been an established program as well for that. So there's probably some growing pains, and there is growing pains within the women's wrestling too, although there's this conversation and debate, which I'll have with the wrestling coach, that women's wrestling's kind of saved men's wrestling because that the growth of the sport, just because the growth of the sport is so big that now like it's adding almost like a second look to the sport, right? Like obviously higher participation. Some people think that the women's wrestling is more entertaining because it's a different style than men wrestle. Like just to keep it on simple terms, like boys wrestling is designed for like control, like you're trying to control your opponent, versus women's wrestling, it's more exposure. So I don't have to control you, I just have to expose your back. So it's faster paced, right? Like wrestling matches and girls, like I've seen it, there's literally been matches that are finished in 15 seconds because it's just they get one takedown and just roll them, just keep exposing back to back, get their 10 points and it's over. And guys, granted guys are, physically different, but the idea is that, you wrestle one style in college and guys with a whole different style with girls. So it kind of adds a whole nother, what's the right term? Like viewership, I guess, to it. And it kind of changes it up, right? So it's just one of those things where I can kind of see where you're coming from a little bit with like the growth of that sport being changed. But like, obviously it's going to be an Olympic sport, right? I think both men and women are going to get that opportunity. And so like, do you think that that's going to, which I'm assuming it will, right? It's going to add viewership. It's going to add participation. I think the NFL players being allowed to play is going to probably affect it a little bit. Like, I don't necessarily, this is a podcast of its own. Let's talk. That's a whole podcast. I was like,
oh no, he's gonna ask my opinion on it.
No, that's a whole podcast episode of its own talking about that. I'll just straight up say I don't think that's fair. I don't think it should be done. There's the argument that like, well, you're getting the best athletes from your country to play in basketball. You're getting the best athletes to play in soccer, whatever the case is. So why can't the only football sport that's Olympic is going to be without NFL players? So like there's that argument too. And obviously there's this big conversation, debate, whatever. But on the terms of which we don't have, I won't ask you. Well, maybe I will. Maybe at the end. Maybe I will.
It's okay.
I just think it's interesting. Like I don't know per se. Like obviously it's new. Like when they announced it, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool, right? Like I grew up playing flag football. Like 7-on-7 is something we do in high school. But like on the level of, I guess both the growth of the sport, do you think it's going to be beneficial? Like, do you think it's going to be more, for one, more nationally known, which I'd assume it is, but also like maybe participation at like, oh, I can get to college, I can play with the Olympics doing this, kind of that aspect of it. But then also the contrary is like, how do you feel about what it's going to bring to the Olympics or maybe to the sport via whether it's the professional athletes jumping in or just maybe just having it at that level of viewership, and really Olympics being the highest level of athletics, right? Like that's the best whatever the sport is, right? Like you're bringing the best people from across the country, across the world to participate. So yeah, I don't know. It's just let's hear it.
No, I got you. There's a couple things to address in that question. So this is the first thing I'm going to address. The first thing that has to be respected and understood and just kind of addressed is that flag football and football are not the same sport, right? They are similar. There are a lot of parallels in the sport, but when you get down to the positions, the even like the overall physical makeup of a flag football player is not similar to a football player. So I think that's the first thing. We have to see flag football as its own sport that comes with its own set of skills that players need to be able to master, one of which is pulling the flag. So there's that. I think the idea that any NFL player is going to their skills will easily translate is a little bit, it's a little bit of a hyperbolized statement, but it's not a incorrect statement. But it'll only happen for certain skill positions, right? Which the lineman is not necessary. The lineman in football is not necessary in flag football. The idea of you have 5 linemen that are not eligible receivers, that idea does not exist in flag football. A lot of, like I said, the skills, like the route running, right? The coverage, that matters, right? The knowledge of the game and the field, those things matter. But then you have to unteach instinct, which is like with a football player, instinct could be to tackle. Instinct can also be with the receiver as far as, you're allowed to use your hands, you're allowed to swat away. In flag football, you cannot do that. That is flag guarding. It's flag guarding. You can't do that. And you even take it to the step, you level up and you talk about USA flag football and those rules, in which are going to be the rules and the standards that we played in the Olympics, if I'm not mistaken. They even have little different caveats to the rules of playing that style than as opposed to college or high school 7-on-7s. It's different. And so to say that any NFL player can walk in and play flag football and the expectation is that we're going to win gold because we took these number one receivers. I mean, I'm not going to say it can't happen. I'm going to say that their training is going to look different. There are going to be some things that are going to be different about it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to negate, right? We are excited about, right? Because I'll say this. When I coached 3 years ago in high school, you couldn't find a lot of flag football media on YouTube. Yeah, 3 years ago, just 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, there wasn't a lot of games you could watch. There wasn't a lot of film to see what it looked like. That stuff just didn't exist yet. And now we have it. And so one of the things that people forget is that they have been playing nationally against other countries already for a couple of years now, right? There's already been a USA national flag football team that has competed against these other countries' national flag football teams. They've won, they've lost, they've whatever, but it's already existed. So is it to say that if we bring our best of the best, that means we're automatically going to win? I don't know.
So that's the question, right? Like, I guess, like, if you were telling me, like, you're right, there's a lot of things that are parallel, but maybe not be the same. But like, if you're telling me that we don't bring, do you watch football like NFL?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, go Birds. I'm from Philly, so go Birds.
Yeah. I was gonna reference a few, right? But like, if we brought Darius Slay, right, as a DB to come cover some dude from Sweden, and we brought like Travis Hunter, right, or we brought some DBs, or like Darrell Revis back in the day, that type of coverage guy, along with some athletic, maybe some athletic linebackers. Whether we brought in some people like, I don't know, like Luke Kuechly or whatever the case is, back in the day. But then some also, like, on the offensive side, like if we brought in like a Megatron, like Calvin Johnson, or like right now in the NFL, like CD Lamb, or like a Cooper Kupp, something like that, right? Like the quarterback, I can kind of see how, like, okay, you're going to have Patrick Mahomes kind of come do it. Like, But like, I guess it's more of the size difference, right? Like, if we brought those guys in at the skill positions, like the pass rush, it's hit or miss, especially if you have a good quarterback who's, I would assume, who can read pretty quickly, or like how you would, whatever the case is, which I could be naive to it, but like you're saying, not, and this is just a conversation piece. I'm not discrediting what USA's already done. But if we brought guys like that in on the skill position wise to come out here and out jump or out physical, which I know there's some physicality. Obviously, physicality is not really a thing, but the physical size, right? Jump balls. I don't know if you guys run screens, things like that, where you're not really blocking with your hands, but you might be just a big body. Whatever the case is, like, is that like, don't you think that maybe something like that or those type of athletes may be able to transition to help out a little bit?
I just think the one thing we have to make sure we understand is that those players would have to unlearn instinct and then have to relearn instinct to be a flag football player. So with, like, I even say with recruiting, right? Let's talk about the quarterback position, right? When I recruit or I'm looking in search of a quarterback, I am looking for someone who is 100% mobile.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's not a pocket.
Like the main thing. The pocket, I mean, if you can get a pocket, great, but those pockets collapse because you have less people covering you, and it's usually a 1-to-1 situation, or it could become a 2-to-1 situation if you don't adjust. But that pocket can collapse quickly, and there usually is no backup, right? You can't move your arms, you can't. So if your protection gets beat, right, you have to be able to move.
For sure.
And then when we're talking about the receivers, right? The number one skill, especially when girls ask me what are things that I'm looking for, it is your ability to avoid your flags being pulled, right? A lot of athletes, and even sometimes in football, right, we see that the speed is enough. And truly, so it is enough. But what happens when the speed is not enough and I can't tackle you? And I have to get your flag, right? The pulling of the flag is a skill in and of itself, but then we then have to talk about evasive running, which is things that we do in camps or we do at practices because it's such an important skill to flag football. Is when you get that ball out in the open field, right? Someone is not flinging their entire body at you. No, you might have even be caught in tighter quarters because the field is a little more narrow, right? So you have to get in between, like you have to be able to avoid the flag pull. Sometimes you have to be able to split the defense, whatever that looks like. And it's not that I'm saying that they can't do it. I'm not saying that because of their size that we need to jump on them. I think we will be naive if we rested in those ideas of just saying these are NFL players. These are supposed to be the best players in the world. They need to come and do this. When, if we look at it from the perspective that it is, which is a different sport, if we're talking about that, having those conversations of, hey, let's make sure that if we're going to take Travis Hunter, we're going to take these people, that we make sure they do some sort of flag football specific training first and switch up their instincts. Because like I said, that flag guarding is probably one of the most common
penalties.
Penalties in flag football. But that's instinct. Right?
Yeah,
that's just the most natural instinct. You're coming at me, so I'm trying to slap your hand away.
Yeah.
I have to teach you to either put your hands up above your head or keep your hands on the ball. But you can't, that instinct of I'm slapping you away or I'm doing it can't happen. You almost have to rely a little bit more on your body. You have to hips, right? We emphasize hips, the movement of the hips a lot for
well, unfortunately, guys, we had a technical difficulty. Gotta love it. It always happens. So I don't know what happened, but Coach was in the middle of talking about like obviously like the differences between NFL and some of these athletes, and how it's a lot of instinctual changes that athletes would have to take to become successful in it. And I think it's a hot topic. To be honest with you. Especially because there is the side like, well, we want to win, so they think we need NFL players. But then there's the other side of it where, like, we don't. I don't know. Maybe we don't. But it's a very hot topic for sure. That's for sure.
I mean, I definitely do think it's fair to say like why. Well, first of all, why is it okay if we just let the women's national flag football team play? Like, do we not care if they win as well? Because it would essentially be, it would be the equivalent of the same thing. There are women's tackle leagues out there, but I think because of it's a women's sport, we don't equate that same idea of these are the best women in the country because they play in this league.
Right.
When we see women's tackle leagues, right, for women, we see their tackle leagues as opposed to flag football leagues. I don't think we would say, let's go get those tackle players because they've been playing football. And I think it's that whole thing of not seeing flag football for the sport that it is. So unless you're, like I said, unless you're going to put them through, which I'm sure is what's going to have to happen, if we're saying, yeah, let's just take all the top DBs and corners and receivers and QBs out of the NFL, yeah, you're going to have to put them through the flag football training camp, see if they still want to play at the end of when it's all said and done. And then who are you going to call? You're probably going to turn around and call those who've already been playing for the national team. So I don't know.
I think it'd be fair if there was a way for it to be like, which obviously, like if you're talking about like soccer, right? Like you're picking and choosing the best players that represent your country that you bring to your camp, and then you select your starters as a coach.
Yep.
That's the proper way of doing it, right? But it would almost be cool if you had like, let's put these two teams together. If the NFL really wants to come here, make them, for one, go through the camp so they understand the rules. But let's put these two teams head to head. Flag football versus NFL team. Let's put them together and let's see who comes out winning, right? And then you can, but then you can still pick and choose, like, or they might both still be part of Team USA as like subs or whatever. But it's just one of the ideas that like it almost be, because it's so hard. I don't know. It's, like I said, this is a whole nother podcast episode, but it's just.
I agree with saying that the fairest thing to do would to be have an open tryout. Yeah, let the people from the national team try out and have them be graded on playing flag football, because that's what this is. Let them try out, let everyone earn their spot, but let's not say because they've been playing in the NFL, that means that they're going to try out. I would say if we were playing NFL style football at the Olympics, yeah, I would go for all the NFL players.
Of course. Yeah,
that's not what we're doing.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Interestingly enough, another point you were saying was you were talking about the growth of the game. And did I think that the growth of the game would catch up? And another thing I want to keep at the forefront of people's minds is when we're talking about at least flag football at the collegiate level and at the high school level, and varying levels, not the national level, but at the college and high school level, it's a female sport. And so those views of it being a female sport still hold true. I mean, when I was coaching at high school, and I've been coaching Georgia has a different season than Alabama, than does Florida. Like, it's, when I tell you there's so much instability in flag football right now. We are one of the only states where you play at the same time as the boys, right? And so when we're talking about, I think the most frustrating thing was figuring out where we're going to practice every day, right? Because we treat football, well, as I've heard many a times in the South, and me not being a Southern person, it just kind of burned me to hear, but football was king. Football is king. It burned me to hear that, not because I didn't think that football shouldn't matter, the culture, or that I didn't understand any of it. My whole argument always was, if you're going to bring a team here, then they need all of the resources that you have available for them to be the best team that they can be. And if we are constantly practicing in hallways and foyers and gyms and the cafeteria, you're not preparing them to be the best flag football team, because that's not where the game is played. So when we're even talking about resources, we're talking about the buy-in, the support, all of that. I think, honestly and unfortunately, I think once the Olympics comes and goes, like with many of things, hype starts to die down. And so I think it will continue to spread like wildfire, because it should, and because more girls are getting interested in it, and, people are trying to fight for it. The NFL is starting to bring it more to light and use their platform to uplift it. And then I think about the court of public opinion, and what do we say about female sports? And so unless we can really shake it up, I think there'll still be some troubles there.
Understood. Yeah.
And going back to what you mentioned earlier, right? And like I said, maybe I'll get you back on for another episode, and we can 100%. We'll just straight talk that conversation because I think it's an interesting conversation, right? But I would love to talk to you about like that challenge you faced about like your number one challenge you faced was recruiting, right? So how are you able to recruit right now? Because I know it's not like I'm sure California probably has flag. I'm sure some of the bigger states, when it comes to population pools, have flag football that you can kind of look into. But I know for a fact it's not nationwide, right? Maybe Texas, maybe some of those states, but like I know my state, New Mexico didn't have it. I don't think Colorado had it, which if they did, it's still super low key. But like how are you recruiting knowing that, which is probably a part of why it's so difficult, but like how are you recruiting and how are you overcoming that challenge to essentially fuel your team and fuel all the things that as a coach we have to do when it comes to numbers. And obviously the deeper you are with talent, the better you're probably going to be because it creates that competition. So how do you try to build that with what your day to day that you're seeing at the high school level?
So, in the recruiting process, I'm really big on not lying to them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm big on not trying to create a facade. I even say I'm not into changing your mind. I'm here to enlighten you. Because if I have to change your mind, then I have to change your mind over and over and over and over again. Yeah. And if you feel in your heart that this place, whether it be LaGrange, whether it be here, whether it be there, is where you want to be, then I want you to rest in that decision. I don't want it to be that you felt like you wanted to go somewhere else and then I had a really great pitch and then I changed your mind, because I'm going to have to keep changing your mind, because there are going to be things that are going to come up in time that you don't like. There will be things that you don't agree with. And I don't want to have to keep changing your mind. Enlightenment for me is I've now made you think of something that you never thought about before. I've now made something possible that you never dreamed of, because a lot of girls, believe it or not, want to go to the armed forces because they can't afford college. So they want to play flag, but they see it as, how am I going to pay for school? I can't even do it. Like it's not even an option for me. So there's combating that. Of course, you want to get good players. You want players with experience. But I think the biggest thing for me is I wanted players that were open to learning. I wanted them, and I need them to be open to learning, especially, again, flag football being a new sport. And to a lot of girls, not to everyone, but to a lot of girls, it's still a new sport. So that mentality, that ego of, I played in my high school, I was a star of this, I was a star of that, we won this, we won that. It's not going to work at many colleges, because you're not the star anymore, right? Yeah. And even if you're coming into an established program, the ones who are already there were there before you are the stars, not you. You still have some work to do. But I'm really big on not lying. So I'm wary about trying to bring in girls from California or Colorado or all different, because I want you to understand what the sacrifices are and that there are going to be some ups and downs. And I don't want you to quit on me. And I don't mean something can't happen in someone's life and then they make because life is happening in college. And that's a big thing for me too, is how am I going to be able to help this young woman navigate through all of these things that are going to happen to her these next 4 years. And if you come from a little bit closer area, it's a lot easier to help you navigate those things. Right. Especially with a program that's just getting started, in terms of funding, in terms of, resources, because then I think about, like, what if you don't have a car? Like, if you're coming from another state and you have a car and then you have to depend on the transportation here, which is not the best. There are a lot of girls who are parents. There are girls who are moms. And so we're not equipped to handle or, understand the sacrifices of an athlete who was a mom. Then I don't want to lie to you. I don't want to just change your mind. So there's a lot of factors. And even though I know I can't, every girl that I talk to who I have a great relationship with, when that Zoom call could go through an hour again, they're thinking about money. They're thinking about money. They're thinking about major. They're thinking about the clubs they want to join. They're thinking about so many things. And I'm not going to always hit all of those check marks. And so I've been trying, though, through this first year, and this has been my first year of recruiting, it's been like a roller coaster ride, and trying to, fill in the number of commitments and making, wanting to have solid players, but also understanding that, there's going to be some teaching that happens. So I'm not looking for a perfect product. I just want someone who could be great for this team and for this program. And then we can kind of go from there. But like I said, I've done a lot of traveling. I've been all up and down Florida, which is a huge state. I would say, like, in the months of like March and April, I've been to Florida more times in March and April than I have ever been in my entire life. Like, I've just been up and down to Florida, and yes, that's because there's where a lot of talented girls are. There's a lot of experienced girls down there. Florida has club. They have club flag football, so the girls can get a little bit more experiencing, but that doesn't shy away from girls from Georgia, because girls from Georgia have different experiences. Like I said, we play during the boys football season, and we play 2 games a day. Every state doesn't do that. Every girl's not conditioned to play 2 games a day, because even at the collegiate level, there might be some games where we play 2 games a day. So there's, like, again, we talk about that instinct, that mentality, the understanding. It's a lot. It varies, but I don't think I'm going to find girls who are necessarily going to be perfect for the program. I just want to find girls who want to be great and who understand where we are, where we're trying to get to, what that's going to take, what it's going to look like. Told them, if y'all want to measure our success by wins and losses, you're going to be very unhappy. And that's not me saying we're going to win every game, we're going to go out here and lose every game. But if that's the only 2 baskets where you're putting all of your eggs, which is an up or a down, that's going to take a mental toll on you. So I'm telling you not to do it.
It will, yeah.
And that could be for any sport, right? You could have came from a high school who you didn't lose a game all 4 years, right? And then you come to a college program. It could be a great program, but that program changes every single year. And so when you take your first loss, how do you handle it? I tell girls, when I come out to see you at a game, I'm looking at your body language. I already saw the film. That's why I'm there. Now I'm there to see all the other things, the things that aren't measured. I want to see your body language. I want to see what happens if you lose. I want to see how you act when you win. I want to see what you look like when your team is down. I want to see how you respond to the referees. I've seen really bad responses to referees, which will make you go, which will make you think twice about a kid. So it also lets me know, well, how much coaching do I have to do with you on the field and off the field? So it's a lot, but also in the states where there are a lot of high schools, or in the states where it's now sanctioned at the high school, it doesn't mean there's a college opportunity. Right. So a lot of girls end up having to leave their state. So that's also look for girls who play other sports.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, those dual sport athletes sometimes make a big difference, right? Like, you might find somebody who never played flag football, which I could be wrong, and this might just be like an ignorant statement, but like somebody who you might be looking at somebody like, let's just say this girl that you're recruiting out of Florida, you might go watch her for whatever reason at the track meet, right? You might be in town already, just like, hey, let's go see how she reacts in other sports. And you might find somebody else that's like, she does volleyball and track, but she's quick as hell. She's explosive. You see that she's very, like, teammate oriented, right? She's in different pits or in different tents. She's talking, laughing, great. Looks like she has a really good relationship with people. Like, her speed and athleticism, like, she might be a good recruit just because of that part, and you can maybe be able to teach the football side of it. But it's hard to teach that personal side of it, right? And who you are as a character. So I think that's big. Yeah, that's one of my biggest things too. Like, as I'm recruiting and as I'm looking for athletes, is who fits the mold on the character side. Because I'd rather have people who may not be like the most. And this isn't to sound like I'm only recruiting character, because obviously you're recruiting talent too. If you want to be successful, you have to have a good mix. But ideally, like, I'd rather have really good teammates, really good people that enjoy what they're doing. You know, the girls get along together, the guys get along together, whatever. But they also have some talent there, right? And I'd rather have that than somebody who's gonna be a national champion per se, right? I know if you have a chance at a national champ, it's gonna be hard to turn them away. But at the same time, it's like, if you're gonna be toxic and you're gonna cause nothing but you're gonna be nothing but drama. You're gonna be nothing but drama. and you're going to be blah, blah, blah down the line, like that's going to be hard to bring in, even though we'll find some success. You're going to be hard to work with, right? So there's kind of like that good, it's kind of that gray line, or I guess gray line, that part of you wants to grab that person because of their talent, but part of you wants to like be hesitant just because from the how you see them responding, from the coaches, from things you've heard through the grapevine, may not be a great person, but they're great on the field, right? And so there's kind of that as a coach, that might be a little bit of a mental, real, or you have to have a thought, and really have to have a conversation with yourself on if this person is worth it, which sounds bad, but if it's worth potentially like ruining what you're building culture wise to find success, right? If that person's gonna be that person that is truly what you need.
So there's
the true answer to that is though, like you don't know.
That's
right.
true.
Like every kid that decides to commit or decides to come and decides to play, like I said, that through those 4 years, so many life changes are happening, especially to young women. So many things are happening to you that can take a toll on you mentally, physically, emotionally. I mean, you find college athletes just decide one day to wake up and they don't love the sport anymore. Like it happens. And so as a coach, I have to be prepared for that too. But I do often think like, when I'm talking to a kid, I understand the position that I'm in. And to them, a lot of the time, the perspective is I'm in a position of power. So you're telling me what I want to hear. And I tell them, I just want you to be honest. But you're telling me what you want me to hear because you want this position, you want this offer, you want this spot. And then you get here and you could turn around and squander it. You could make a very silly decision and now it's all gone. And I took that risk and still giving you the offer, making sure you were on the team, doing whatever. And so then I always keep that in the back of my mind where they're strangers still.
Yeah, they are.
I'm going to learn about them. Just like they're going to learn about me, and there are going to be things about me that they don't like. There are going to be things about them that I don't like, but it's like, that's not what this is at all. This is about you growing as a person, because the world is going to be things that you don't like. And so how do you respond to it? How do you get through it? How do you answer to it? Whatever it is. But like I said, I constantly think of that, like these kids could get here and these girls could get here and I don't know what could happen. It could be really, really great, or it could go really wrong. And, you just have to handle it as it comes through the door. You can't even anticipate it. So I can get a great athlete that I think is a great character because they're with their mom and dad every time they talk to me. And then you get on that college campus, and who knows what
change it up.
It changes. It happens.
It's true.
Like, being a former teacher, I am big on your education. I am aware of that. I know that there's such an excitement about the Olympic flag football, but other than that, what are the true opportunities for you to go pro at this?
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot, or if any at all. If you're not on that national team, and even if you are, they still probably have real jobs. So I have to prepare you for the real world. I can't just prepare you to be a professional athlete because all of those professional opportunities aren't there yet. I have to be real with you about that as well. Like, you're here to come to school. You're here to get an education. You're here to get your degree, and you're here to have a world of opportunities beyond just flag football.
The sport, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think that's important as a coach, high school coach, any coach, is to understand that you're a student athlete and students should come first, and understanding that we got to drill that out, because otherwise, I wouldn't say it's pointless, right? There's some kids, like, obviously, we're talking like the big 4, big 5 sports in this country. A lot of times you'll know if you're going to go pro right away. Like Cooper Flag in that basketball world, like those one and dones in basketball, like, So it's like maybe they're going to school just for their eligibility and then they're done. So, like, sure, that kind of makes sense. Like, you're not really coming to school for school. Just come here, be eligible enough to play, and then be gone, right?
And be drafted, yep.
Yeah, and then there's the other side of it where, like, you have those guys who are in the school, who love the school, and they're there for their education, right? They're there because they know they want to be a doctor or a lawyer or, veterinarian, whatever. And it's just important to know where you sit in the world of sports, and understanding 7% getting to college and then less than 1% going pro is very small. So
It's
Then, yeah, and then
understandable.
think, there's no pro league for you. So there's
Yeah.
not even a percentage going pro. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So what are we doing this for?
Yeah.
And you have to
yeah, it's-
keep them focused on that, like their why. Like, why are you here? Because you can't say I'm here because I'm going to the National Flag
Going to
Football
the
League
league,
and I'm
yeah.
going to be drafted. I'm going to be drafted. That can't be your why because it doesn't exist. So
Yeah.
tell me, why are you here? A lot of them, I love this game, and even a point you made earlier about the skills transferring over. Most flag football players, I won't put a hard number on it, but I have talked to a lot at this point. They're multi-sport athletes. This isn't even a sport where this is your main sport. This is a sport you quote unquote specialize in, or you've been playing for a lot of years. If you don't come out of the state of Florida, your average amount of years is probably 3 to 4 by the time I talk to you.
Yeah.
So, but that's very different from a basketball player, right?
Yeah, for
a lot
sure.
of them, flag football is the back burner sport. This is what I'm doing in the off season because track didn't start yet, or softball is over, or soccer isn't, right? So then that coach came and said, "Hey, you might look good for flag." So a lot of them, flag is not it's not their passion, it's not their first love. It doesn't matter how great they play the game.
Yeah.
That's not what they want to do. They're going to go off and play something else. So then it's like I have to find the girls who want to play this sport right here, and they want to be great in this one right here, which is also hard because, like I said, they don't see where it could take them yet because those opportunities don't exist yet.
That's the hard
So when
part,
I
right?
can
Is seeing
see
the
it,
dream.
when I can see, especially basketball, right? If I want to go to the WNBA or I want to play overseas, I know there's a chance I can get there because it exists for me right now. So I have something to continue to work towards. Flag football, if it's the Olympics, for most girls right now, they're able to hold on to the Olympics. But we all have to know that that's a needle on a haystack chance.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean you won't get it. I'm not crushing anyone's dreams, but that's it.
The chances, yeah, but realistically, the chances are small, right? Like, work for it. I'll help you. I'll do everything I can to get you to that opportunity. But just because you work hard doesn't mean you're going to get it, right? There's politics, I'm sure, in flag football too. So every sport kind of has its own politics, especially in team sports, and just what it is. So now that we've kind of talked a lot about the sport, a lot about recruiting, and kind of what you've had to overcome and stuff like that, I want to dive a little bit deeper. Now, I don't know if you've listened this far into a show. I know you've listened to a few, but this is where we get to those real coaching questions, right? The deep ones. So if you guys are still listening to this on Spotify, any of the audio platforms, I don't know why I couldn't speak there, any of the audio platforms, make sure you guys leave a review, say what you got to say, but say it with your chest because Coach and I want to hear it. If you guys are on YouTube, make sure you guys like, subscribe, the whole 9 yards, so you guys get the notification bell so you guys know when we drop next. But when it comes to you being new, right, and being new to the college world, flag being new in general, hopefully it grows to where you have more opportunities to play and stay closer and just grow the sport as schools may find this being a real opportunity for, as a school side, numbers, but also just more athletics. But how do you build a successful culture on the level of buy-in and mindset?
Successful culture on buy-in and mindset. The one thing for buy-in is being honest with them about everything that goes on and not lying, because eventually, things come to light and then that's how you lose them, is when they realize you haven't been honest about things. And mindset is, I want my athletes to just keep a competitive mindset. Yeah. I don't want your mindset to be focused on winning and losing. I always just need you to compete. Every time you step on the field, I need you to compete. I need you to know that as long as there is time on the clock, you still have a chance. I need you to believe in your skills. I need you to believe in all the things we've been working up to prepare for this game. Like, you're ready. You're prepared for it. I've seen what that looks like when they are scared. And I used to stand, no joke, this is a true story. I used to stand on the side of the field in high school, and I could see girls out there scared out of their minds, usually on defense. Like, you're just can't anticipate, their IQs aren't there yet where they're anticipating what's going to happen. And, sometimes girls don't want to fall and get dirty, or I don't want her to run into me. And I'm like, so
that's crazy.
I would stand as close as I could on the field. Like, I would get right, sometimes on the field, but I would get right on the line. And I would say to my players, I would yell at them, and I would be loud enough that everyone could hear me. I would say, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? Like right now in this moment, you've done everything you can do. Now you just have to execute the play. So what are you scared of? Because if you're unprepared, if you're scared, you can't be out here. Period. You can't be here. So what are you afraid of? Just make it happen. Because I'm not going to be mad at you if you make a mistake. I am going to be mad at you if you don't do anything. I'm going to be mad at you if you're out there playing scared. Then I'm going to be mad. But I'm not going to be mad if you make a mistake.
Just go compete. Yeah. I'd rather,
Just compete. So, I mean, I in practice, I try every practice to do something where they have to compete against each other. I just want you to compete. At the end of the day, I want you to keep fighting. I want you to keep trying. I want you to keep going. I want you to persevere. I want you to be resilient. I don't want you to look at the scoreboard and let that drag you down. I want you to keep competing. I need you to keep fighting because ultimately that is how you win. But once you've given up, you can't win anymore.
I agree.
So I do a lot of that in practice, in meetings, talk about mindset a lot. You know, again, from my background in mental and behavioral health, these are not things that we have to separate in what they're doing as far as this is a sport and this is how we take care of our mental health. It has to be incorporated in one. Right. So a lot of the things I do on the field and practice with them, it's just all incorporated in their mentalities and how they approach things.
How they do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, creating a competitive environment is important. You know, I've always said this, and anytime I recruit somebody is, you know, as I build this program and as I build this room, you know, you can't win a national title without having somebody who can step up, right? And by doing that and being able to step in and compete, you know, like any football, any team sport, you know, having a competitive quarterback room, having a competitive lineman room, having competitive this room, that room, whatever position you play, like if you don't have somebody that is going to push you to be better every day, how can you be better every day, right? Because you're going to get nonchalant, you get comfortable, like it's just how it is. And so, like having that competitive room to like, hey, you know, whatever the case is, right? Like that's kind of my idea too. I love how you broke that down by saying that, like, I just want you to compete, and if you're afraid of it, like you're not competing anymore. You just want to shy away from it, right? And so just building that understanding, like every day we're trying to compete, be competitive, and just get that in your mindset. And it doesn't have to be like, if you can take that competitiveness from outside of the sport too, and like be competitive when you go into, you know, the classroom, be competitive when like anything that you can do. Maybe there's obviously levels to it outside of the sport, but in general, like you can be, if you can find that way of being competitive just as a person, it'll obviously translate really well into the sport. So I love how you broke that down, and I can appreciate that. Now, like, I know you haven't had a lot of time here, but you had a little bit of time in high school, so maybe you're going to bring that same approach to it in college. But like, how do you build a successful program on the level of wins, and then like how do you sustain that, you know, year to year?
It's figuring out what are focusing on fundamentals, right? Yeah. Like I said, the two main skills that I feel like we can't leave the field without doing are flag pulling and evasive running. Like those are so fundamental to the sport, where it's like if we focus on those things, especially flag pulling, because it is a skill, right? And if you do it, if you do it the right way, if you do it the right way every time, you're more likely to not miss any flags, and then we're more likely to not let the other team score and not let it. You get it, like the snowball effect. Yeah. So focusing on like those fundamental things. There are some things that we should just be doing every single day, because those tiny things that you do right in practice, they'll come and you'll do it right when there's 30 seconds left on the clock. And then you're not in panic mode because you've done it so many times that it's second nature to you. You're not worried about it. And like I said, just, you know, being where your feet are and focusing on where you're at. A lot of times, you know, they're thinking about other things. In high school, they would think about what happened during the day. And so I actually started doing something called check-in, which is, you know, everyone gets dressed or whatever. Then I walk out on the field, I blow a whistle, and I stand with my hands out. And everyone knows that we need to get in a circle. We all come to a circle. And check-in is usually always your name, how you're feeling, and then I'll ask a random question of the day. So if it's the beginning of the year with a new group, the first question is usually like, what's your favorite color? Right. And then as the season goes on, maybe I'll get you a little gift because I remember what your favorite color was. And, you know, I thought about you. So that builds trust. Right. And especially with girls, that's how you get the best out of them for them to be successful. So it is about, you know, the things that you do on the field, making sure that they're doing the fundamentals, they're focusing on the elements that help you win. You're developing them as players and as people, but then you're creating those personal relationships because I'll tell you now, a young person, a high schooler, a college, they will give you their loyalty if you are, you know, if you show them that you're worthy of it. They'll give you the loyalty. They'll go out and they'll fight for you on that field like it's nobody's business. Like they will go out there and give you their all. And then in times too, I can get any kid to do the right thing in the classroom too with that. So not always focusing on the sport and what's necessary for the sport, but also what's necessary for them too, because ultimately the team success, how it comes all together is them as individuals being successful people. And then they want to see everyone else be successful. And then they're able to, then you realize I'm not out here playing just for myself or my stats. I'm out here with my team. I'm playing for my coach. I'm playing for the people on the stands. I'm playing for the school. It's bigger than me.
For sure. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, build it. Yeah, I agree. They'll run through a brick wall if you do it right. And so I can appreciate that for sure. So the final question I have for you, it's my favorite question. It's also the name of the show, right? Is what's your why? Why do you do this?
My why right now is I understand the opportunity that I extend, especially to young women in sports. And in this sport particular, I understand that, you know, just my presence as not just a female head coach, which is odd enough, not odd, but not common, but a Black female coach. You know, being a head coach, walking into these rooms with my head held high, it lets every young woman know that you can be here too. You can be in this position too. A lot of them, before they get to me, they've only ever had a male coach. Yeah. So I understand what I represent in this position. I understand the opportunity for a young woman to play a sport that they love in college. And, you know, like I said, it's just building those senses of community around them, wanting them to be better people, wanting to see them graduate. Like that's really why I do this. I can tell you it is definitely not for the money.
Yeah,
it is naturally just for the love of knowing what I represent in this position and what it means when other girls can see women in powerful positions, especially in sports.
For sure. Yeah, I love that. Do it for the passion of the sport and to show these young athletes, these young women, that they can get there too. I love that. Coach, I love your why. I loved everything I heard today. It was my first time ever talking to a flag football coach. I didn't, it's interesting. I love it. So I appreciate you jumping on here today. I hope we can get you back on. Maybe another time we can talk more schematics and something like that. But love to chit chat with you. But I appreciated you jumping on here today. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This is my first podcast interview. So come back in like 3 years once I've had a little bit more experience, and then I'm sure I'll have a nice little update for you. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. It always goes right. The more you're around, the more things change. So I look forward to that time frame, guys. I appreciate you guys so much for listening to this one, watching it, whatever it is. But with that being said, catch you guys on the next one. Peace.